Pacifica Radio, I'm Christina Onnested. President Joe Biden is expected to sign legislation to block a railroad worker strike today. The Senate passed legislation to do so, sending the bill to the president's desk yesterday. It failed to pass a measure that would have given the workers 7 days of paid sick leave due to mostly Republican opposition. West Virginia Democrat Joe Manchin also voted against it, though it was a core demand of railroad workers. One of the unions demanding paid sick leave, the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way Employees Division, said, quote, "It's shocking and appalling. Any member of Congress would vote against any sort of provision that raises a living standard for hardworking Americans. In fact, such a vote is nothing less than anti-American," unquote. Alex Gonzalez reports.
Workers who do difficult and dangerous work have 0 paid sick days. 0. You get sick, you got a mark against you, couple of marks, you get fired.
Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders was one of many progressives that were wanting to grant railway workers 7 days of sick leave amid the threat of a national rail strike that would cost billions of dollars per day and induce various supply chain complications across the country. On Thursday, the amendment failed to pick up the support it needed on the Senate floor. In an 80-15 vote, the Senate did pass a labor agreement. The bill, now headed to President Joe Biden's desk, aims to implement the agreement that was reached earlier this year between railroad managers and their workers and would take the fast-approaching strike off the table. I'm Alex Gonzalez for Pacifica Network and Public News Service.
The House committee investigating the deadly January 6th Capitol siege is set to meet today to mull criminal charges against former President Donald Trump, who's already running for president in 2024. The subcommittee formed to make recommendations will present its report to the full panel today. Lawmakers are acting fast before Republicans take control of the House next year and will dissolve the committee. The panel's expected to release a full report later this month. Russian shelling has cut off power in much of the recently liberated Ukrainian city of Kherson just days after it was restored, killing at least 3 people. Moscow's pressing its drive to destroy Ukraine's energy plants and other key civilian infrastructure as freezing weather sets in. In Kiev, Mayor Vitaly Klitschko has warned the capital millions of residents they should stock up on water and preserve food to see them through the winter. That could be a miserable one. He also urged people to consider leaving the city. Meanwhile, the European Union is proposing fines and even jail sentences for breaking sanctions on Russia. President Joe Biden and President Emmanuel Macron have vowed to maintain a united front against Russia and support for Ukraine during their meeting Thursday. Max Pringle reports.
The two leaders discussed issues like the war in Ukraine, containing China and the Pacific, and trade. Macron and other European leaders have expressed some frustration with Biden's climate and energy law, known as the Inflation Reduction Act, which they say could hurt their economies through the U.S. insistence on focusing on U.S.-made electrical cars. During a joint news conference, Biden said there's room for negotiation on that front.
We agreed to discuss practical steps to coordinate and align our approaches so that we can strengthen and secure the supply chains, manufacturing, and innovation on both sides of the Atlantic.
Both leaders face challenges keeping the flow of military and economic support to Ukraine going amid the mounting costs as that country defends itself from Russia's invasion. Macron said through an interpreter that he and Biden have recommitted to aiding Ukraine.
To strengthen our support to the Ukrainian troops and to enable them to resist.
Macron has said that he intends to speak with Russian President Vladimir Putin in the coming days after he's consulted with Ukrainian allies about the conditions for a peace agreement. Biden said that he has no plans to contact Putin, but he's open to discussions with him.
If, in fact, there is an interest in him deciding he's looking for a way to end the war. He hasn't done that yet.
I'm Max Pringle.
The Supreme Court has agreed to take up the legal challenge to President Joe Biden's student loan debt cancellation plan and keep it blocked from going into effect until they make a ruling. The justices agreed to take up the case in late winter. A ruling could be by summer, before the pause on loan repayments ends. President Biden's plan promises up to $20,000 in federal student debt forgiveness. The Congressional Budget Office had said the program will cost about $400 billion over the next 3 decades. More than 26 million people have already applied for the relief. 16 million have been approved. 6 Republican states filed suit arguing the administration overstepped its powers. The Biden administration says The 2003 HEROES Act gives it that power. The Supreme Court will decide the outcome. A prosecutor says Donald Trump knew exactly what was going on with the top executives for the Trump Organization, who schemed for years to dodge taxes on company-paid perks. The argument challenges defense claims Trump was unaware of the plot at the heart of the company's tax fraud case. Manhattan prosecutor Joshua Steinglass made the allegations during a closing arguments Thursday. 15,000 nurses at 16 hospitals across Minnesota voted to strike starting December 11th over stalled contract negotiations. Nurses are demanding higher staffing levels and a 30% wage increase over 3 years. Hospitals have offered up to 12% wage increases. I'm Christina Onnested reporting for Pacifica Radio.